Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors, America's only daily outdoor TV show. Your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Winston Chester. Glad you're here this morning. Big show lined up, a special guest. But first, as always, let's get started with our weather, brought to you by Gulf Coast Air Conditioning, Drew Pollard and hard-working crew, and Christmas giving crew also. We had a great time. We'll talk about it on tomorrow's show about all the things we did. A lot of folks feeling good about that. Okay, weather today is going to be not that cold. I thought it was going to get colder now. It's going to get colder tomorrow. It's only going to get down to 47 today. The high is going to be up to 71. So but it's going to be cooler tomorrow. Of course, you've seen the weather forecast coming in. Water temperature is 66 degrees. Wherever reading brought to us by Panama City Coca-Cola. Good folks down there. We're looking at the Bluntstown reading is an 8.9 at Apalachicola, 8.9 and dropping out for the weekend. Choctaw Caryville, we're looking at a 8.4 and it's dropping out. Like we said yesterday, both rivers dropping out, especially the Choctaw dropping out pretty fast. Our tide chart brought to us by Kent Forest Lawn. Folks, today is December 19th, so less than a week away. Good strong tides today and tomorrow, but not that good on Saturday. So we're looking forward to, I know y'all want to get some good time off to finish up your Christmas shopping. Wind is not going to be quite as strong as I thought it was going to be earlier in the week. I'm calling for 5 to 10 out of the northwest. All right, let's take a break, come back with our special guest. Okay, welcome back, folks, and welcome to a familiar guest here on Panhandle Outdoors, Captain Rick Corley. Welcome back.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. And Rick and I talk on a fairly regular basis. We go through busy times, but then we'll get back. But we were talking, last time I had him on the show, we got a lot of comments on how much folks, our viewers, enjoyed his stories on just the historical things that he was a part of, or his dad was a part of. And you know, you start thinking about things like this, we don't have that many old-timers around still telling eyewitnesses accounts. And I don't want to call him old-timer, but he's a great historian, and he's lived it, and all these things, been around the world 7 times and all that kind of stuff. But really, we're going to concentrate. We were talking the other night about some local history and some folks that we're just so fond of, some families that we just admire so much and tied in with so many other families. And we were talking about Grover Davis, and then Rick was telling me what a story. So I said, you need to come on the show and tell us a real life story of really what happened in the early years of when this fleet started. So this is going to be like a historical segment here. We're probably going. I told them don't leave out any details. So we're probably going to start the story and give the background to it. And it's just something I know a lot of y'all will really be interested in hearing this firsthand account. So, Captain Rick, let's get started on it. So go ahead, you get background.
Well, back in the 1950s.
Back in the day, okay.
Yeah, in the day. And of course, I was a young teenager, and Grover was a little older than I am. But Captain George and Dad met in a kind of an unusual way. Captain George came out, and it was in early 1957, and he asked to see my dad, and I happened to be working the counter at the office of the motel. And of course, we lived behind.
Let's show this picture so we get this out of.
That was taken by me in 1962.
This is Grand Lagoon.
Yep.
Okay, so we're looking which direction?
We're looking kind of northeast.
Kind of north, okay.
And where you see the boat hauled out on the right-hand side there, that's the old Grand Lagoon Marine Service we had, and then the motel is in front of that, and then over on the other side is the motel. That's where that tin shed you see at the bottom down there is where the Grand Marlin Restaurant is now.
Okay.
That's Lighthouse Marina now with Grand Marlin Restaurant.
Okay.
But back in the day, that was Tom Rick Motel and Marina and Grand Lagoon Shipyard.
I love the cars.
Yep. Well, that boat right there is the Gulf Wind. Yeah. And it belonged to the Hobbs, who leased space, which is a cousin of the Davis and Anderson.
This is just when it first got started out in Grand Lagoon.
Yeah, it was 8 years to the day that we started. It was on May the 20th, 1962. Okay. So anyway, Captain George showed up, asked to see my dad. I took him into the kitchen. Dad's sitting there, you know, having a cup of coffee in the morning. And he says, Captain Tom, he says, my name's Captain George Davis. I'd like to talk to you. I got a problem, and I think you can help me with it. And Dad says, well, sit down, Captain, have a cup of coffee, and we'll talk about it. So they did. And he says, I didn't have a real good summer this last summer. He says, I'm having a little cash flow problem. He says, can you fix my boats for me? And I can't pay you until after 4th of July, but after then I can pay you and I'll give you a $500 bonus. Back then that was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Dad says, well, Captain George, he says, how many boats you got? He said, 3. He says, I got the Queen of Queen, Nudix Queen, and I think Florida Queen. And he says, if you'll help me out, he says, I'll make sure you come out all right. He said, bring your boats. So in about February and March, he showed up one at a time. We hauled the boat out, fix it, get it through the Coast Guard inspection, and he'd go back in the water and bring the next one. Well, sure enough, I was working the desk again the first weekend after 4th of July. And in comes Captain George. And he says, your dad in? I said, yes, sir. He's at the kitchen table going in. So I could hear what was going on. Mm-hmm. And he went in, sat down with him, started counting the money out on each invoice. And he had the right cash, you know, mm-hmm. and then he laid 5 $100 bills on top of it. Mm-hmm. He says, I really appreciate this. He says, I was going to sell my boats if I couldn't have done this, because he says, I couldn't run. I'd been out of business. He says, well, I'm glad I could help. And he reached over and got the 5 $100 bills and handed them back to Captain George. He says, I'll see you next year for the time. He says, have a good summer.
Oh.
Now, that was kind of neat. And I thought, wow. You know, and they did all that on a handshake now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So later on, Dad in 1993 started to build a stern wheel showboat called Cherokee Princess, which later became a Chattahoochee Princess.
Okay, all right, so this is going on a period of time.
Yeah.
Now, the relationship's been very strong.
Yep. We haul their boats all the time after
We haul
that.
them out each year, and what a great relationship they have. So, okay, we'll take a break and come back and see what happens next. So we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. We're here with Captain Rick Corley, who comes on quite regular, and we enjoy having him on. I just have this deep appreciation, as many of you do, of our heritage, the history here of our boat building, our fishing, and it's so unique. And then, I say, get a first-hand account of these stories that, you know, when someone was there. We need to do a segment on a regular basis. I don't know what we call it, Panhandle flashback or something, but yeah. I want to go ahead and let Captain Rick finish this story, because it shows the kind of men we had back then who would do business on a handshake and
right.
cash. And that's, you know, we don't have that much anymore. So go ahead and, so they bonded, and y'all had
right.
all the boats out every year, the Florida
right.
Queen, Nix Queen, all that.
Yep.
And in fact, before we get back, I want to show, here's the Florida Queen right here. Back then, the boat,
yeah.
that's Mike Miller in the front of the boat there with that crew. Yep. And here's the Queen of Queens. Those are 3
yep.
that y'all hauled out.
That's Grover on the left, Duck in the middle, and Joe Ed on the right.
That's right. These pictures came out of my book, and that's.
And that's Captain George himself right there.
Right there. So.
Yeah.
So that's the background behind it. So Rick, go ahead with your story now. So what happens next?
All right. So back when in the 90s, the 96, the Olympics were coming to Atlanta, but 5 of the events were held at Columbus, Georgia.
Okay.
And so Dad knew about it and decided he was going to build a 73-foot stern wheeler like he started out on the river, to make an excursion boat up there for that period of time. And he did. He built it between 1993 and 1995. And
so how old was your dad at that time?
He's in his 80s. He was born in 1908.
So he's in his 80s and building a boat. Okay, so
yeah.
okay.
With one helper, me. And then I had to go to, my old boss called me, and I had to go because they had a problem in Conakry, in Guinea, West Africa, and in Rwanda, which I had to go do. I can't explain all of it, but it was important. So Dad said, go, I'll hire some people. Well, he went through 25 helpers. And I'll tell you, that's another story for another day. Anyway, in that time period, I happened to be working with Daddy at the start of it. And we ran into Grover coming out of West Building Material on 15th Street at the time there, at 15th and Jinx. And Grover says, how you doing, Captain Tom? And Dad says, I'm doing okay. He said, well, what are you doing now that you retired? I says, I'm going to build a 73-foot stern wheeler. He says, you going to build it? He says, yeah. He said, where you going to build it? He says, I own that lot. It's empty next to me. I'm going to build it there. He said, well, how you going to flip the hull? He says, well, you know, you had to build it upside down. He says, and then turn it over. He says, I'll get Grice to come out with his heavy equipment and flip it. He says, well, how you going to get it to the water once you get through? He says, I'll get Foster to come out with his house moving truck and lowboy, and we'll load it up and get it to the lagoon. He says, I got a better deal. He said, what's that? He said, come out to Queencraft. I'll let you borrow some of my acreage out there. And he says, we got lots of tools that we work our woodwork with, and it'll help you out. And he says, when it comes time to flip the hull, we can flip it and we'll put it in the water for you. And you can finish it dockside. He said, Grover, I can't afford that. He said, I didn't ask you for any money, did I? He said, why would you do that? He said, I want to see an 80-something-year-old man build a boat because I might learn something. And he said, the other thing is, I remember when you helped Daddy out, we was about to go broke. And he said, I want to pay it forward. So that's how that started. And I never forgot that. And that was the kind of person he was. But he was a lot like his daddy. And his daddy was a man of his word. All of them were. If they shook your hand and said they're going to do it, there's only one reason it didn't get done. They died. Their word was their bond, and that's what we've lost in this country in a lot of ways.
So they were able to get it built over a period of time.
He got it built, got it. I got back from Africa in time to put it through the Coast Guard inspection and the sea trials, and helped him take it up to Columbus, up the river. We ran 6 trips, and a retiring colonel from the Army came down, liked what he saw. He said, I want to buy the boat, and bought it. And Daddy was fine with that because he was wanting to build a boat. He didn't really want to run it after he was going.
Right.
So that was his last hurrah, but it was what made him make it to 93.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And where is it now? Do you have an idea?
It got from us and termites because the owner that had it was out of Jacksonville, and they didn't look after the boat. They put it down at Lake Point, and it got in such bad shape they pulled it out on the hill and took the engine out of it and some other stuff off of it that was good and burned the rest. It's gone. But you've got a picture of it somewhere.
Yeah, I do. I do. I was looking on it. Don't have it right here.
I've got it, so when we take a break, I'll try to send it to you where you can put it on the air.
Okay.
But it was called the Cherokee Princess at first, and then it became Chattahoochee Princess. Okay. That's my dad right there.
Let's take a picture of this. I pulled this up right here. That's your dad.
Yep.
And he was quite a boat builder and a captain. And,
yes, and he.
Especially, how long did he do the business that you had?
Oh my goodness! Between the two of us, Daddy started it in '54. And I started part-time with him in '69, but I just, spots. In 1992, when I came home, my last tour, I was, of course, running a research ship for the Navy, and I was in Desert Storm 1. When I came home, I said, I'm tired of traveling all over the world. I want to see my kids grow up a little bit. So I came home and decided to take over the company. I bought it from Daddy, and he said, I don't know if you can make a living at it or not. Well, I did. I was a very successful Marine surveyor. I competed with some of the best in the world. And I stayed in it for 26 years myself. Daddy was in it from 1945 to when he passed away in 2001.
I guess he would be amazed at the different boat styles and everything now.
Oh, yes.
And from what he
Yeah.
saw at the very beginning and the old wooden boats that we started on.
Yeah. Well, you know, I tell a story to a lot of Coast Guardmen sometimes. I said, you know, wood boats weren't bad until the Coast Guard got involved. For 5,000 years, wood boats did everything, and all of a sudden it went terrible, primarily because they don't have any expertise in wood boats.
Yeah.
And
That's funny. Yeah.
they know fiberglass, they know aluminum and steel, but
Yeah. For thousands of years, the wood boat was fine. Then it started
yeah,
spectrum.
all of a sudden it went bad.
That's a good one. Let's take our final break. We'll come back to Captain Rick. Okay, welcome back. So here with Captain Rick Corley, son of Captain Tom Corley, and we're glad to have him on the show as always. But before we get back to Rick, let's take a look at our fishing game times brought to us by Blue Water Outriggers in Port St. Joe. We're looking at this morning 2:17 to 4:17, this evening after lunch from 2:40 to 4:40. And I know everybody's getting ready for Christmas and last minute shopping. Are you all ready yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of doing good things for others, I know you've heard of the tragic incident that happened over in Sweet Bay 3 or 4 days ago. They're having a fundraiser fish fry. They've asked me to put this on the show to raise money for the surviving family members. So this is today. That's why I want to get it out today. It's $15 a plate. Pick up. It's 11 a.m. Pick up in front of University Academy in Sweet Bay, and there's a phone number. Bottom right, there's a phone number. Text it if you want to get 20 or more plates, which I know some companies just order 20 plates, but you need to sort of pre-order that ahead of time. So this is for the John family, and they live in the community of Sweet Bay. So that was a tragic incident. So anything.
Yeah, I know. I knew his dad.
Did you
well.
really?
Yeah, I know his dad. He's a good friend, and that's awful. It's just terrible.
And also Chris Carroll, one of the Carroll family, one of our Lowy viewing families. He had, this is cool now, and I know, Rick, you appreciate this. This is a 1955 Evinrude Lightwind. I'm asking $250. Did not know if you showed them, and I sure will. So listen, every man that's been around the water needs an old motor. Okay, here
Well, I tell you what, that was a good one.
That one, look at there. You remember that?
Yes, sir. I had one of them.
And on the stand, that is cool. So, okay, here's Chris's number. It's 850. He put 859 in the first one. 850-768-2497. What a collectible thing to put in the garage, or if you have a restaurant or something, or just cool. So only $250.
You know, he ought to make contact with Barber's Marina over in South Alabama there on the Intercoastal.
Yeah, they have a bunch of them.
Oh man, they've got a museum, and they buy that motor. I'll bet you $1.
Chris, remember that. But if you want the viewers, y'all call them ahead of time so you can get that. So
yeah, it's Barber's Milk. They have a marina there south of Foley.
Okay.
On the waterway.
And I was going to take a picture. Let's get back to George Davis.
Okay.
Let me see. You want to read? This is.
Yeah.
Let me
You
see.
want me
This
to read
is
that?
at a service right here, and it was a great service. And
Today's his birthday.
Ironically, we looked on it. He was born December 19th, 1941. And what's today's date? December 19th. He'd be 83, 84 now.
Yep, 83.
But anyway, he had I remember reading this at the service. It's fairly long. Probably won't have time to read all of it because I only have a few minutes. But it's called The Train of Life, and it's just so good. But I'll try to get it copied and maybe read it when we have more time. But
Okay.
That's a good.
Well,
one there.
the other thing is to continue. When my company was a viable company, of course, and I didn't want to just quit and not leave somebody. So I sold it to Daniel Cole.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people would have said I'm crazy, but I sold it with no contract. It was a handshake between me and Daniel Cole. He has honored it every day, exactly as he said. And we've had a great relationship, and I've been able to retire. And he's done everything he's supposed to. That's integrity. That's what I was getting at with the whole story. These people had integrity.
Yeah.
And there's some of us that try to carry it on.
They still
today.
do. And this is the third generation, although it's not a family, third generation of
That's
that
right.
business that's been passed on down locally here and on a handset.
Well, I knew Daniel's dad.
Yeah.
He was in charge of the aquaculture, waterside. He ran the tugboat and the barge that put shell in Apalachicola Bay all the time for the state of Florida. And we had a great relationship. And he called me and says, "Hey, my son's looking for something like this. Would you entertain training him?" I said, "Sure." And he turned out he's one of the top surveyors now. And
Yeah.
he's very good at it.
Got a good foundation in it and a good company. And this is part of the rich heritage we talk about of our maritime heritage and history right here in the Panhandle. That part of it there being passed down.
Yeah, I get tickled. Some of these people say, "Well, you know, they don't have a lot of education." I said, "Let me tell you something. My dad had a lot of education, and I don't know what Captain George's was, but a lot of these fishermen, it's called on-the-job training. And I'm here to tell you, you work in the maritime, you better learn to do it right, or you're going to possibly die or get hurt bad. It's working around heavy equipment, and those people." They knew what they were doing. They knew how to build.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad built our motel and marina. Him, not somebody else.
Yeah.
And built the shipyard.
It's pretty valuable
Yeah.
property now. I mean,
Yeah,
back
it
then
is.
they probably thought he was crazy doing stuff
They
like that.
thought he was nuts for buying it. He was crazy for building it. He was too far out of town, gonna go broke.
Too
Then
far
he
out
was-
of town.
Yeah, and then he was
Okay.
crazy for running it because he was wearing himself out. And then he was crazy for selling it because he was selling a gold mine. I said,
There you
just
go.
nuts.
That's right.
Yeah,
You
I
can't-
hope I'm 10%
You can't listen
the
to
same.
people. You can't listen to people and make your own.
Naysayers never get anything done.
That's right, exactly. We have plenty. We're gonna run out. We're about to run out of time.
Okay.
And I wanted to get that story in. I appreciate you telling
Merry
me.
Christmas too. Yes,
And a Merry Christmas to you. And
my
your
favorite
family.
time of year.
I know it. It's going to be special. So
Yep.
I'm glad we got the story in, though. It's a good way to end your last visit this year. We're looking forward to next year having you on some more.
Yeah, well, I like to be here.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much, Captain Rick.
Absolutely.
All right. Appreciate y'all watching the show. Y'all do something good for someone else today. Enjoy the great outdoors. Take care of it, and God bless.
Thanks for watching America's only daily outdoor TV show, Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester, featuring hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.